Welcome to the Holiday Decor Podcast, your source for the year-round celebration of holiday hope and seasonal cheer. To help you usher season's greetings into your home, here's your host, Ann McDonald.
The $1 million mantle. It's the thing that all of our clients want to get a hold of. They want it to be perfect. Have you ever been in that place where you think to yourself, Ann, if I could only have the perfect mantelpiece this Christmas season, my entire house would be elevated? Well, that's what we're going to cover in today's podcast. Let's take a quick break to thank our sponsors, and we'll be right back with the $1 million mantle look, stylish elegance in 4 simple steps. Do you have a large home that you need to get party ready this season? Do you have a house that's over 3,000 or 4,000 square feet and you're thinking to yourself, I do not know where to start? Well, if that's the case, we have an exciting free training just for you. And this free training is going to help you decorate your large home, church, or property without busting the bank or spending countless wasteful hours trying to get everything done. So join us for our upcoming free exclusive webinar, How to Decorate Your Party-Ready 4,000 plus square foot space, where you and I will unpack the secrets to stylishly elevating your holiday decor this season on a budget. We're going to train you just like we train our professional holiday decorators. So don't miss this opportunity to elevate your holiday space. If you're responsible for decorating the church this year, or you're decorating your friend's house or your own home, and it is a large space, don't get overwhelmed. Go right now and register for your free ticket at our upcoming webinar at www.holidaydecorhome.com. That's right. Go directly to www.holidaydecorhome.com. How many of you love, is it acronyms? I think it's called acronyms. Yes, well, you can definitely tell this is not AI. This is really me. Hi, it's Ann McDonald, and I want to welcome you back to the Holiday Decor School and Training Institute podcast, where it is my heart to empower you, to equip you, to encourage you to have a fabulous holiday season. All right, well, let's dive in. I have a special tip for you this week on the podcast. And how many of you love it when we use those acronym where we actually just come up with a few letters that make very easy sense to us, and then each one of those letters stands for something that is actually a tip? Well, that's what I'm going to cover this week. So the truth is, when you want to get the $1 million mantle look, especially on our team, the word that we remember is look. L-O-O-K. And what we're going to do this week is I'm actually going to share with you the 4 stylish, simple steps that we use to get those over-the-top $1 million mantles. All right. So what does this look like? And sometimes when we look, especially this season, I'm recording this podcast in 2023, and maybe the styles have changed when you're listening to this podcast. But right now I'm seeing 2 very different trends happening in my feed. One is the super simple, like it's just greenery from Amazon or Pier 1 or some other fancy store, and it's very understated. The other look that we're seeing a lot of is the super over-the-top layered look with lots of color and jeweled ribbon and all of that kind of stuff. Well, what I'm going to talk about today, the LOOK acronym, L-O-O-K, will actually work for both of those looks. It's why I like it. It's why my team and I actually have a checklist that when we're going to install different mantles, and I have a funny story about a mantle that we installed for my mother-in-law a couple of weeks ago, where one of the actual pieces, well, it fell down. I'll unpack that another time with you. We definitely fixed it. But when I was installing it, I actually used this look acronym. So what does LOOK stand for? It's very simple. So get out a pencil. If you're in a place where you can take notes, make sure and take notes. Also, you can go visit the show notes on this one at holidaydecorhome.com. All right. So what does LOOK stand for? Well, the L stands for layers. The first thing that we want to do, even if you are creating a very simple, elegant, understated mantle look, you still want to have layers. Now, I have a funny story to kind of explain that in just a minute. But let me give you what each of these things actually stands for. The first O, so we've got the L, which is layers. The O, the first O, is O for ornaments. One of the most important things that you're going to do when you're building out your mantelpiece is make sure to have ornamental tie-ins to your Christmas tree and other things in the spaces and the places that you're decorating. Now, the third one, this is where it really starts to shine, because the second O, which is the third step in our $1 million mantle look, is for opulence. Now, opulence is the key. Opulence is including some of those reflective and special materials that actually elevate the look of your mantelpiece. Now, again, I'm going to give you some concrete tips, so stay with us during the podcast because I really want you to be able to visualize what I'm talking about here. This is one of my favorite things to do and to decorate is mantelpieces. And then the fourth one, the K, is actually for keepsake. Now, how many of you have gone into these homes where they've got these over-the-top mantles? It really does look like $1 million mantle look, but it feels very sterile. It doesn't feel like it's connected to either the family or the home or even the business. Even in like the Ritz-Carlton hotels and fancy hotels, they will also include this K for keepsake. If you think about it, it can be as simple as a branded item that matches, especially if you're designing for a business. But if you've got you're doing this for your family home, I want you to think in terms of using keepsake ornaments in your $1 million mantle look. All right, so let's go ahead and unpack these individual elements. So the first thing I want you to think about is layers. Now, I typically like to use at least 3 different types of garland when we are building out a layered $1 million mantle look. Why? Well, the first one we want to do is we want to have a very stable base garland. A lot of times our stable base garland will actually be unseen by the time we get the mantle finished because it actually acts as, well, it's like the foundation stone. It's kind of like the undergarments. A lot of times we will use inexpensive green, just plain old garland from a craft store with nothing on it, but it has really strong little sprigs that we can actually use as the ties when we're adding the other elements. So that's actually the first layer. Now, the second layer that I like to use is our core garland, like the core decorative garland. Now, I think many of you who have followed the podcast know we actually we design and then manufacture 3 different core garland lines. One is called Aspen Winter. And I love it. It's got magnolia leaves in it. It's got these tree of life crystals in it. It's a beautiful and elegant garland. The second one that we manufacture is something called Majesty. And Majesty is actually the garland that I installed in my mother-in-law's home just a couple of weeks ago. And it's very thick and plush and soft. It's for very traditional homes. It's got a very big look to it. Now, the third type of garland that we design and manufacture in-house is a line I developed. It's called Joie de Vivre. And Joie de Vivre is all happy, pale pinks and pale blues. It's bright, it's vibrant, it's youthful, and it's super fun. But all of these garlands are what I call like the second layer garlands when we're building out beautiful mantelpieces. Why? Because we want to make sure and have a super stable base. And that's what I forgot to do. Well, I actually didn't do it because I didn't think I had time to do it. And without that stable garland base underneath, I didn't have anything really strong to attach the Majesty garland to. So that's why never forget that look and acronym. It's layers, ornaments, opulence, and keepsake. All right, so we're going to take a quick break to go over to our Tinsel Time feature for this week. And then we're going to come back and I'm actually going to tell you a funny story about how I actually came up with the concept of layers. All right, we'll be right back after a word from Tinsel Time.
Welcome to Tinsel Time, where we enjoy something extravagant every week just for fun. Want your holiday home to be extraordinary this season? Design a custom holiday monogram using the name of your home. Many of our luxury design clients name their homes and then use the initials of that name to create a custom monogram. This is a fun way to seal the holiday season with sparkle. In order to create this elegantly, look to luxury brands for inspiration. Are you more of a Range Rover type person? A Porsche type person? What about Ferrari? Once you have picked at least 3 luxury indulgences, we begin to work on the calligraphy. Will your home's monogram be fancy and swirly, block style, or classic and simple? Have fun with this. Then consider your color palette. Once the main monogram is created, we add small tokens like holly berries or snowflakes to bring a high-end seasonal look. Fancy and fabulous, you can do this each year for your holiday home or create one to last the ages. Use it as a common design thread for your bespoke holiday home experience. See a few pictures in the show notes at holidaydecorhome.com and be sure to share yours with us on the blog.
How many of you have friends that have, I'm going to say it, hair extensions or even false eyelashes? Hi, it's Ann, and we're back today with this podcast where we're talking about the $1 million mantle look, stylish elegance in 4 simple steps. What are those 4 simple steps? Well, it follows the word look, L-O-O-K. It's layers, ornaments, opulence, and keepsake. Now, here's the thing. This is how I came up with the layers piece. I actually had a friend who, she didn't have long hair. She had kind of short hair, but I came to find out one of the reasons her hair looked so good was that she actually had hair extensions. Well, at the time, I'd never heard anything about that. I didn't even know it was possible. This was well over a decade ago. And she said, yeah, she'd been pulling her hair out a little bit. And so her hairdresser had given her these little hair extensions. And I was like, my mind started to go. And I thought, I wonder if that would work for mantles. Well, at the time, we weren't really layering different types of garlands. It was very just, you'd buy the garland at the store or have it made or kind of combo pack it together. And we would just use that on a mantle. And I was like, I wonder, it got me to thinking, have you ever had that place where something else inspires your actual decorating or your designing? Well, that's what happened and how I came up with the look acronym. So I was sitting there thinking, what if we layered different garlands together to get a really unique look? Hence the $1 million mantle look. So again, the first layer you're going to put down is a super solid base layer. Now, some of you will attach these layers with command hooks. Just here's a quick tip for you, and you may already know this, but when you're using command hooks, you always want to let them set for at least 24 hours before you put any attachments on them. That's actually what happened when I installed the custom mantelpiece at my mother-in-law's house. I put it up, we put the command hooks up, and I was like, it'll be fine. Well, guess what? It wasn't fine. I got home and my husband and I got a call and she's like, the left side of the mantelpiece fell down. I'll actually include some funny pictures for you on the show notes over at holidaydecorhome.com. But let's go back to the layer piece, because the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come up with an attachment system. Now, we have used chicken wire, we have used command hooks, we have used nails, screws, all sorts of things. So once you've got your hardware in place, the first thing you want to do is come up up with a really solid and aggressive base layer. Now, I like to use an inexpensive craft store, store-bought dark green garland as the base layer. And I actually use the sprigs of that garland as the tie-ins to hold my other layers. Let me know if that makes sense. The second layer should be your main visual garland. And for this season, we've got Joie de Vivre, we have Aspen Winter, and we have Majesty, 3 totally different looks. But that's your actual visual garland. That's the one that's going to anchor the space for you. The next layer, at least 3 layers, sometimes 4, but the next layer should be a garland or something that has some textural context to it. So I like using things that are sometimes unusual. So I like using things like magnolia leaves or other greenery and shrubbery that isn't actually normally associated with Christmas, because I think it pops the eye. And I love using eucalyptus and other things to help layer that stuff out. Now, if you want to go along with and have another layer, an additional garland, you can use something that has jewel tones in it, or jewels or sparkle or reflective materials. So that's the L. So in your $1 million mantle look, I want you to think in terms of 4 base things. Your layers, which we just covered. Next, I want you to think about your ornaments. Now, one of the most powerful things you can do with your ornaments is actually vary the sizes, okay? And you want to think in terms of odd numbers of ornaments or odd numbers of clusters of ornaments. Now, it's very easy to take your ornaments and cluster them together using some floral wire or even pipe cleaners. And then you tie them together and then you put them into your mantle garlands. That's the second thing, the O. Now, the second O is what we call opulence. Now, I love adding in metallics and reflective surfaces, even deep in a garland, to give things a real pop. You can even use small little votives with battery-operated candles and double-sided tape and put those deep inside the garland, so that while you've got your garland lit, you also have different types of light and reflective surfaces coming out. So I'm always looking for something opulent. A favorite tip for opulence is actually, how many of you have ever seen those keys at craft stores that are maybe gold and silver and they're super ornate? I love putting those into mantle garlands. And especially on Christmas morning, you can actually use a little key and put gift cards in there for different family guests and things that maybe they're coming over later in the day and they're not going to participate in the big gift giving ceremony, but they are part of, kind of the extended family, and maybe they're going to get a $25 gift card to this or a $25 gift card for that. And it's fun to actually put the keys, the fancy keys, into the garland as a piece of opulence. And then when your guests come, they can take those and then that's their gift. Let me know if that makes sense. I love doing stuff like that. Now, the final thing that we like to use in what we call the $1 million mantle look is something called a keepsake. And I want to tell you a quick story about how this one started. How many of you have a love for blue and white? Maybe you have a love for toile, or maybe you have a love for Royal Crown Derby china. I know I love that stuff. Maybe you have a love for certain different types of patterns. Maybe it's tartans, or as you might say, plaids. You have a certain look that you just absolutely love. Every time you see it, you're like, oh, I kind of want that. I have a friend who collects roosters. I have another friend who's like, she's all up in the blue and white. I have another sister who's got she has this red and white toile in her house, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Well, when you're thinking about keepsakes, what I want you to think about is taking elements from your home and then adding those into your mantle look, your mantle garland, or your mantle display, whatever you want to call it. Now, I want to give you a specific example. So the first time I really saw this, I was able to actually participate in designing and decorating it. It wasn't actually for my home. I was working for another designer in New York City. And I don't know if you guys remember, but there's a pattern. It's called Wedgwood. Wedgwood is a manufacturer. And there's this pale blue with a raised white relief on it. And it's just this gorgeous china. And they actually make these ornaments every year in this pale blue and white. And they're just gorgeous. And they're pretty pricey and, they're fragile and all that kind of stuff. But what I noticed was in this one project, this home was, it was actually on Fifth Avenue. And the home was perfect and the decor was very understated and very elegant and very opulent, even though it was understated and elegant. And on the mantle, as we were thinking about what are we going to put in this space, I was like, what if we took some of the china that she already has and we bought ornaments that matched the china? And so we were able to pull it into the mantelpiece. Well, what happened was we discovered that the china and the Wedgwood was actually a very personal keepsake for her. So it was that moment of discovery. It was almost like her eyes lit up like she was a child again. And so that was the first time, I didn't have language for it at the time, but that was the first time I actually experienced, hey, what if we actually put a keepsake type ornament into the mantle decoration? And not only does it elevate it, we call it that $1 million mantle look, but it's stylish and it's elegant. And it helps to tie in the whole house decor together. So let me know if that makes sense. And think about what that might be for you. So, right now I'm actually sitting in the cabin in Lake Tahoe as I record this episode for you. And there are a couple things that we have in this cabin that are part of the cabin that actually have kind of a keepsake feeling for me. One of them is copper. So when we were designing this cabin over 20 years ago, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to have hand-hammered copper countertops. And so all around the cabin, we have these little pops of copper. We have it on the stair railings. We have it in the kitchen countertops. We have it in the custom built-ins in the living room. And then on the Christmas tree and on the mantelpieces, we have these little pops of copper and burnished gold. And for me, it's that keepsake tie-in so that even if, we're not at the cabin or, we're not celebrating Christmas at the cabin for some reason, I know that having those little keepsake ornaments, those little nods to memories and family times from old, that those are the things that really warm our hearts for Christmas. And I think personally that absolutely elevates what you and I do, especially during the holiday season. All right, so let's go ahead and review. Again, this $1 million mantle look, it doesn't have to be complicated, friends, but I do want you to remember the word look, L-O-O-K. So how are you going to get this look? You're going to remember to have layers, right? At least 3 layers. And what are those layers? You're going to have a base garland layer. You're not going to do what I did where the mantle thing fell down, okay? You're going to have your base garland layer. You're going to have your visual presence layer, like the main look layer. And then you're going to have another layer on top of that just adds in a little bit of unexpected. I like to use things like I said, eucalyptus and other things that are not necessarily Christmassy. The second one is ornaments. You want to make sure and put groupings of odd numbers of ornaments into your mantelpiece. The third one is the opulence piece, right? You really want to elevate it with jewel tones or reflective surfaces or, little diamonds and little crystals and things like that. And then finally, you want to bring something in that's a keepsake. Now, I get this question a lot. How many of you are like, Anne, that sounds great, but that sounds like my grandmother's house, right? It's like, it's not really the house that I want. I want a super clean lined, streamlined, looks like a West Elm catalog or a Restoration Hardware house, something like that. Well, I want to remind you that good design is good design. And I want to share with you how we actually unpack this look, the LOOK, when we're doing something very simple. So let's take another quick break to thank our sponsors. It is what makes this possible. And if you haven't already subscribed, liked, and shared the Holiday Decor podcast, please do so. All right, so let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, I'm going to wrap up this episode with how we actually take this LOOK, this look, and use it when we're creating something super clean and streamlined. We'll be right back. How fun would it be to spend a day working on your holiday home design? What would it be like if you could actually create a storyline and a color story for your holiday home? Well, we have an opportunity for you that is new this year called Holiday Decor Live. My team and I have an entire day set aside where you can come in and out and workshop with us and learn how we create fabulous, beautiful, stress-free holiday homes. We'll be sharing with you our happy holiday decorator system and the same process that we train our professional and certified holiday designers in. You can find out more information about the upcoming Holiday Decor Live Masterclass on our website at www.holidaydecorhome.com. Don't miss this one, friends. On January 1st, you're going to be sad if you missed this year's Holiday Decor Live. We have a seat with your name on it. Again, you can find out more information at holidaydecorhome.com. And all I want is to have a super clean, simple, and elegant look this season. I know, friend. How many of you have ever been in that place where maybe last year you went over the top and this year you're thinking, I just want to keep it simple? Well, you can use this same acronym, this LOOK, the layers, the ornaments, the opulence, and the keepsake, even if you're doing a very clean-lined look. Now, there are a couple, if you're listening to this podcast, you're likely aware that there are a couple of super favorite influencer types who've said, hey, this is my favorite garland. You can get it on Amazon or you can get it via their link or their like to know it page or whatever it is, but it's very clean lined. Now, I want to share with you, even if you're doing a super clean lined look, how we actually follow this look acronym. So layers again. One of the things that you can do is use the base garland layer. And then instead of thinking of another garland, you're going to want to layer in sprigs that match that garland and make it a little obtuse, make it a little off center so that it's not that super perfect look. Maybe it's just kind of swagging to one side a bit. Now, you can see lots of examples of this on Instagram. The next one is the ornaments. So one of the things that I like to do when we're doing very simple and elegant ornaments, and you've likely seen it this season as well, is to use little bells and maybe burnished gold or coppers or things like that. And you can use very, very small rounds. So I know at Hobby Lobby, we were actually able to secure some very small, I think they're less than an inch in diameter, little rounds on a stick. And what we did was we actually spray painted them a gun metal. So they're very neutral. It's a very restoration hardware type look. So that's your O for ornaments. And again, you just put in the sprigs for the ornaments. Now, opulence, I think that even the simplest pieces can use a little bit of opulence. And if you don't know how to do this, one of the funnest ways to do it is to actually put a mirror underneath and towards the back of where your garland is going to sit on it so that the lights will reflect off of a little strip of mirror. Now, nobody's going to know it's there except for you, but what it will do is provide an element of depth to a very elegant and streamlined look. And then for the keepsake, one of the things that can be fun is to actually take ribbon that you pick out with your children or that has a very special meaning for you. I know this season we're seeing a lot of very thin velvet ribbons, and a ribbon can be a keepsake. one of the things that I like to do with ribbon also is to write, use a really fine tip Sharpie, and you can write on the back of the ribbon before you hang it something that you're thankful for, so that nobody sees it but you. And that can actually be the keepsake piece. So I hope that you have enjoyed this week's $1 million mantle look, stylish elegance in 4 simple steps. I hope that you will remember that LOOK acronym: layers, ornaments, opulence, and keepsake. So let's have a happy holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and thank you for listening today. We'll be back next week with another podcast. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. Make sure to check out those show notes at www.holidaydecorhome.com. I want to invite you to subscribe, rate, review, and share the Holiday Decor Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere awesome podcasts are found.
Thank you for listening. For more information and tips on how to turn your home into a place of joy this holiday season, please visit holidaydecorhome.com.